The United States of America and Iran have moved to high-level negotiations, which were even blessed by the leader of Iran, Mojtaba Khamenei. Iran has agreed to end the war, but the terms of the ceasefire will be strict. Trump wants to take part in the governance of post-war Iran. Washington has said who they are ready to talk to in Tehran. The Strait of Hormuz remains effectively closed, and Iran continues attacks on Israel and the countries of the Persian Gulf. Qatar has declared a catastrophe at the gas fields, and Israel is expanding the war into Lebanon. Meanwhile, the US is still preparing a ground operation to invade Iran, while Saudi Arabia and the Emirates have announced that they are ready to join the war. This is the morning news digest to keep you up to date with absolutely everything that's happening. In this episode, we'll quickly sum up the last 2 days of the war in the Middle East. My name is Pechiy. Let's discuss this topic together, but before we start this episode, I want to ask you to support the work of this YouTube channel by subscribing or with your donation or sponsorship on YouTube. All links and details are in the video description. Any support is appreciated. But do it at the end of the episode if you think it was interesting and useful for you. And also subscribe to my Telegram channel, Pechiy News. The link to it is also in the description of this video. There we publish breaking news as it comes in. So now let's go through everything step by step. The main hot topic in the last 24 hours is the negotiations between the US and Iran about ending the war. US President Donald Trump said that he held talks with the Iranian side and they allegedly agreed to end the war and make concessions to Washington, including abandoning their nuclear program and missiles. For their part, the Iranians deny that any talks took place and claim that Trump's words are just part of an information and psychological operation, nothing more. At the same time, the 48-hour ultimatum that Trump gave Tehran expired the day before, in which he threatened to strike Iran's energy infrastructure across the country. After that, Trump gave Iran another 5 days to think before continuing the war. It is reported that the new supreme leader of Iran, Mojtaba Khamenei, agreed to negotiations with the Americans. Министр иностранных дел Ирана Abbas Araghchi sent a secret message to Trump's special envoy Stephen Witkoff, which said, quote, "We have received the consent and blessing of the supreme leader Mojtaba." After Trump announced negotiations that could lead to a deal, Iran initially denied it. However, a phone conversation between the Iranian minister and Witkoff revealed completely different circumstances. The Iranian official confirmed that Mojtaba Khamenei took the place of his deceased father and emphasized that the successor, quote, "approved the swift resolution of this matter if our conditions are met." Nevertheless, mutual attacks continue. March 24, Iranian media reported that the US and Israel attacked Iran's energy infrastructure in Isfahan province and in the southwestern city of Qamishli. In response, Iran launched a new series of rocket attacks on Israel. The intensity of the war does not subside, despite the fact that US President Donald Trump allegedly postponed attacks on the Islamic Republic's energy system the day before, citing productive talks with Iranian officials. Israeli officials, speaking anonymously, say that in their opinion President Trump is determined to reach a peace agreement. However, they believe it is unlikely that Iran will agree to Washington's demands. Trump himself says everything is going as planned. At the same time, the Iranian embassy in South Africa posted an image of a pink children's toy steering wheel on social network X. Well, apparently it was meant to mock Trump's idea, floated to a journalist, that he and Iran's supreme leader could jointly control shipping in the Hormuz Strait and, more broadly, the situation in Iran, like to share power. Meanwhile, Pakistan says that direct talks between the US and Iran could take place in Islamabad as early as this week. US Vice President J.D. Vance, as well as Special Envoy Stephen Witkoff and Trump's son-in-law Jared Kushner, are expected to meet with Iranian officials in Islamabad this week after a phone conversation between Donald Trump and the Commander-in-Chief of the Pakistani Armed Forces, Asim Hussain. At the same time, the American media highlighted a person who is being considered as a potential leader of Iran, with whom the Americans might be able to reach an agreement. This is the Speaker of the Iranian Parliament, Mohammad Baghir Ghalibaf. He himself denies any willingness to negotiate and calls the publication nonsense. But here it is important to note that at the same time, the Iranians are actively being invited to negotiations in Pakistan. Ghalibaf himself is a representative of political leadership. He is the chairman of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps and is closely connected with the current leader of Iran, Mojtaba Khamenei, who is not recognized by the United States. But still, it is Ghalibaf who denies negotiations, who will go to Pakistan for the first direct talks with the Americans. So there is something to think about here. Meanwhile, the Iranians continue to launch missiles and drones toward the Gulf monarchies and American military bases. Israeli territories are also under attack. In response, Israel and the US are striking Iranian territory and have started shelling the positions of Iran's allies in Iraq. 15 fighters from the pro-Iranian Popular Mobilization Forces were killed during an airstrike by Israelis and Americans on Anbar province. In retaliation, they are launching drones toward Iraqi Kurdistan. Overall, a new front of this war is brewing in Iraq, when it shifts into a war with Iran's proxy forces. As for the Hormuz Strait, the most important oil artery, it remains effectively blocked. Some ships have started passing through it regularly based on agreements with Iran. Tehran has begun charging a fee for ships to pass. They're simply making a lot of money from this, and it's unlikely they'll want to give up such a lucrative source of income now. The US still can't fully unblock the strait. Iranian tankers themselves continue to go out to sea and calmly export their oil to Asia, in smaller volumes, but still, that's how the Americans are behaving, as if they don't see it, that Iran continues to trade oil. At the same time, India and China did reach an agreement with Tehran after all. Just yesterday, now there's also the first Chinese ship. It calmly passed through the Strait of Hormuz, which shows that Iran is basically carrying out its plan, only allowing ships and tankers from friendly countries to pass through the strait. And those who are not from friendly countries, they just have to pay a fee to pass through the strait. That's why it's very hard to imagine that Iran would easily just give up on this idea of making money out of thin air. Conflicting information keeps coming in about a possible US ground invasion of Iran. The media reports that American Marines are being deployed there. Washington itself and Donald Trump personally deny any plans to invade Iran. The Iranians say they are ready to fight on the ground. At the moment, it is known that about 7,500 Marines will arrive in the region within a few days aboard several ships. Out of 3 American amphibious units, the USS Tripoli Group was redeployed from the Asia-Pacific region, while the personnel assigned to the 3 ships of the USS Boxer Amphibious Ready Group, based in California, were called back early from leave to deploy to the Middle East. A third group of Marines, similar in nature, is already on its way. In this region, there is increasing talk about the likelihood of the Americans capturing Kark Island, which accounts for 90% of Iran's oil exports. The most powerful state in the Persian Gulf, Saudi Arabia, and the United Arab Emirates have begun preparing to join the American-Israeli war against Iran. As officials from these countries stated, a military attack on Iran will be carried out if Tehran attacks the critical infrastructure of the countries in the region, particularly power plants and water supply systems. Meanwhile, Israel is ready to take military control over part of Lebanon's territory to prevent a return to southern Lebanon. Pro-Iranской Hezbollah. France has called on Israel not to expand its military operation in southern Lebanon for humanitarian reasons. The French are concerned about this, that this will lead to an even larger exodus of people and a wave of refugees to Europe. As a result of Israel's bombings, 500,000 Lebanese have already been forced to leave their homes. Israel states that it plans to occupy a buffer zone in southern Lebanon extending 30 kilometers from the border. Iran's strike on Qatar's gas facilities in the industrial zone of Ras Laffan caused significant damage. Qatar has declared force majeure at its gas facilities. This will affect its contracts with Italy, Belgium, South Korea, and China. According to Qatari officials, repairs to the gas facilities could take up to 35 years and require at least $26 billion. The United States of America announced the day before that only American forces struck more than 9,000 targets on Iranian territory. According to the Iranian Red Crescent, which is like our Red Cross, Israeli-American bombings have led to destruction or damage. 82,000 civilian buildings on Iranian territory, including 62,000 houses, 281 medical facilities, 498 schools, and 17 emergency service centers. Of course, these statistics do not include military facilities and bases, but it's also worth noting that this information is provided by agencies operating in Tehran, which requires some qualification. Тем временем Ливан. After the departure of the Iranian ambassador from the country, pro-Iranian Shiite parties condemned the government's decision, while Israel welcomed it. On social media, there is no consensus among the Lebanese on this issue, which, by the way, highlights that Hezbollah is still being supported. But the Lebanese authorities now find themselves in a very unenviable position, because Israel no longer believes that the authorities in Beirut can somehow restrain the forces of Hezbollah. The Philippines has declared an energy emergency due to the closure of the Hormuz Strait and a shortage of oil and gas supplies. In Bangladesh, aviation fuel prices have jumped by almost 80%. Japan has started negotiations with Iran to allow oil tankers bound for Japan to pass through the Hormuz Strait. China and India have already reached an agreement, and their ships are passing through the Hormuz Strait. This was a brief overview of the key Middle East news for this Wednesday morning, so please like this episode and support it with a comment. And if you want to support the work of this YouTube channel, you can do so through donations, subscriptions, or sponsorship on YouTube. If you'd like to do that, all the links and payment details are in the description of this video. That's all for now. Take care of yourselves. Goodbye, everyone.